Hello again, everyone. So, for a while now, I've been wanting to kind of experiment and maybe do a different type of reading, a more not safe for work slash adult themed reading. So, I'm going to do the same reading I did last time, Jack and the Beanstalk, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. It is not safe for kids. You've been warned. I'm going to wait a few seconds. So, if you had this queued up, for your kids and you're hearing this now and you're like, oh, I better turn it off, now is the time to do that. You've been warned. Okay, here we go. Jack and the Beanstalk, version 2. Once upon a time, there was a widow who lived in a tumble down cottage with her son Jack. Jack and his mother were so poor that all they had was an old white cow. One day, when there was no food in the house and no money to buy any, the widow said to herself, I will have to sell our cow, or Jack and I will surely starve. So Jack's mom called him to her and said, Jack, I want you to take the cow to market and sell her, but be sure you get a good price, because she's all we have now. Yes, mother, Jack replied, and he put a collar on the cow and headed to town. Jack was delighted to be going to market by himself. As he walked, he whistled a cheerful little tune. He was interrupted when he heard someone say, You seem to be in a fine mood, young man. Where are you going today? Jack turned around. What business is it of yours, you little shit? On the side of the road stood a strange little man. He was about 4 feet tall and dressed in a bright green suit. Why, I guess I'm off to market, Jack said, to sell our old cow. I'll buy your cow if you like, said the little man. What will you give me for her? Asked Jack. I'll give you these magic beans, the little man said. Then he opened his hand. Jack looked at the beans in the man's palm. They were all the colors of the rainbow. Magic fucking beans, Jack cried. I've never seen anything like it. And he traded the cow for the beautiful magic beans. Mother will be so happy, Jack thought, feeling very pleased with himself. Then he ran home as fast as he could to show her the magic beans. But Jack's mother was not happy when she learned what he had done. Oh, Jack, she cried, how could you be such a stupid little shit? You traded our cow for a handful of fucking beans? Jack's mother was super pissed. She picked up the magic beans and threw them out the window and gave Jack a boot in the ass. Jack realized his mistake, but it was too late to do anything about it. The cow was gone, and there was still nothing to eat for supper. Jack went to bed, feeling like a dipshit. All night, Jack tossed and turned. My mother and I will have nothing to eat tomorrow either, he thought miserably, and it's all because of me and those magic beans. I hate myself. The next morning, Jack gloomily climbed out of bed. When he went to the window, he saw an amazing sight. Where his mother had thrown those stupid beans, a giant fucking beanstalk was growing. It was thick and tall, so tall that it reached into the goddamn clouds. Mother, come quickly, Jack called, and together they stood in the garden, staring in wonder at the beanstalk. I wonder where the fuck it goes, Jack said. Perhaps I'll climb it and find out. You'll do no such fucking thing, said his mother. Those beans have already caused enough trouble, you dumbass. But it was too late, for Jack had already started up the beanstalk. Up he climbed, higher and higher, until the cottage below looked no bigger than a bird's nest. Still, Jack could not see to the top of the beanstalk. At last, Jack climbed through the clouds. There he found himself at the top of the beanstalk. A field of clouds stretched in every direction. Jack could see an enormous stone castle. He jumped off the beanstalk and walked toward the castle. Soon he stood before the entrance, a huge iron door. Not knowing what else to do, Jack pulled the bell. It seemed like a good idea at the time. After a moment, the great door slowly swung open. To Jack's horror, there stood a huge, ugly fucking giant woman looking down at him. Before Jack could run away, the giantess scooped him up in her huge hand. "Oh, good," she said in a great big voice. "I've been looking for someone to help me with my chores." Jack was so frightened he about shit his pants. All he could do was say, "Of course. What do you want me to do?" "Well," said the giantess, "first you may help me light a fire and polish my boots. Now, we must be very careful when my husband comes home, for there's nothing he likes better than to eat roasted Englishmen for dinner." Jack did not like the fucking sound of that shit, but the giantess promised that she would hide Jack in the cupboard when her husband came home. So he helped her light the fire and polish her boots. All of a sudden, Jack heard a terrible sound like the roaring of thunder. "What the fuck is that?" he said. "That's my husband," the giantess cried, and she quickly hid Jack in the cupboard. Then Jack heard a great booming voice. "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." And in stopped the giant. He was a big motherfucker, bigger than his wife and uglier too. He sat down at the table and shouted, "I smell an Englishman. Catch him and roast him at once." "Don't be silly," replied his wife. "That's only the mutton stew I've cooked for your supper." Peering through the keyhole of the cupboard, Jack watched her set down the biggest fucking bowl of mutton stew he had ever seen. The bowl of stew was so big that Jack could have sailed one of his fucking boats across it. The giant quickly ate the stew. He called for another bowl and ate that one too. When he finished, the giant said to his wife, "Now bring me the goose that lays the golden eggs." His wife brought a very ordinary looking goose and set it before the giant. Then she went to bed. "I've had enough of this shit," she said. After she was gone, the giant turned to the goose and said, "Lay." The goose promptly laid an egg of pure fucking gold. "Lay," the giant said a second time. And the goose laid another golden egg. "Lay," the giant commanded a third time, and the goose laid a third egg of gold. Jack's eyes grew wide as he watched through the keyhole. "A goose that lays fucking golden eggs," he thought. "Why, that would be the shit." Jack wondered how he might steal that little fucker. After a while, the giant's eyelids began to grow heavy, and soon the fat fuck fell asleep right at the table. He snored so loudly that the walls of the castle shook with it. When Jack was quite sure that the giant was fast asleep, he crept out of the cupboard and tiptoed across the table. Then he snatched that goose that laid the golden egg. With the magic goose under his arm, Jack leapt off the table and ran across the stone floor towards the door. He's gonna make it. Just as he reached it, however, the terrified goose cried, "Help! I'm being stolen! Help!" The giant awoke with a start. When he spotted Jack with the goose, he came racing after them. "Stop!" the giant shouted. "Stop, thief! Give me back my fucking goose, you little shit!" But Jack didn't stop. Of course not. Duh. He was too frightened to turn around. He kept running as fast as he could across the clouds to the giant beanstalk. At last, he saw the top of the beanstalk, and still clutching the magic goose, he started climbing down the beanstalk. But he hadn't gone far when the beanstalk began to sway violently. Oh shit, it's getting real now. Looking up, Jack saw that the giant was coming down the beanstalk after him. Jack began to climb down faster. Shit, shit, shit. The giant began climbing down faster too. Jack reached the bottom of the beanstalk first. He saw his mother standing by the cottage door and he called to her, "Ma! Ma! Give me the fucking axe! Right now!" His mother came running with the axe. Jack grabbed it and with a single blow chopped right through that fucker. With a great groan, the beanstalk came crashing down and the fucking giant fell with it. Now, where the giant landed, no one fucking knows and nobody really cares. But Jack and his mother never saw his ass again. Jack showed his mother the goose that laid the golden eggs, and she fed it some dried corn. Excuse me. The goose was so happy to be free from that douchebag giant that it laid a golden egg, and then another and another. Jack took the golden eggs to market and traded them for food and a new hot cow, a sweet ass Lambo, and lots of other cool shit too. And ever after Jack had climbed that giant beanstalk, he and his mother and the goose that laid the golden eggs all lived happily ever after.